So this is our third Supporting Communities Through Challenging Times event. We've had the strangest few months, and nobody could have foretold that an international public health crisis of this magnitude would sweep across the world and affect so many in such a short space of time. On the 7th of May, we organised our first event, and that was really an opportunity to connect with our customer base and to give people the opportunity to discuss the issues they were facing and how they were addressing those issues. And that, in most cases, and in all cases, I think, meant complete closure. And I suppose those that were frontline in whatever situation that arose, be it Meals on Wheels, etc., they were absolutely double, treble in terms of demand and in terms of output. So it was kind of the two extremes. On the 7th of May, we had an overwhelming level of interest in terms of our information session. So we again repeated another session on the 26th of May. And at that stage, 3 weeks later, there was a big change, I suppose, in the context that we now had a roadmap for reopening the economy on a phased basis over the next few months. And again, we had a lot of interest, and I suppose we had some kind of strategy for reopening. Now we're in a situation where the reopening of activities is planned, and we're told that we have to continue to adhere to social distancing and introduce various measures to minimise risks. And national bodies are preparing and have prepared guidelines, but the practicalities of actually operating on that basis, that won't be known until we're reopened and operating again. So how are we going to be able to manage the events that we've been doing as community organisations for years? Sports activities, having matches, running social events, having fundraisers, all of those things have to be looked at in a different context, a different perspective. It has to be put on those. Various different strategies have to be employed. And people have shown us over the last couple of sessions how resourceful and imaginative that people can be in terms of the ideas that they've come up with even to date. So what we're doing here is this evening, this is an opportunity for us to look at the issues and maybe just share suggestions and ideas for the future, which is going to include COVID-19. Our CEO is here tonight, Paul O'Sullivan, and he's chairperson of the Wheel, which is the national body for community and voluntary organisations, and sits on the National European Task Force for Social Enterprise. So, and it's our intention to take any issues that are raised here and, where possible, to incorporate them in terms of our operations in Cloncredo and to bring them to the relevant national fora. And we'd also like to establish your priorities in relation to further topics that you'd like more information on. And we'll certainly endeavour to deliver those events that'll meet your needs. So now we'll try and get started. I did mention Paul O'Sullivan is here who's our CEO. We also have Jim Boyle, who's Head of Finance and Operations, Sue Target, Marketing and Communications. And most of you will know at least one of us from the following list. We've Martina Moore, who covers the Midlands. Myself, I've introduced myself already. Tracy Hannon, Jennifer Hennessy, who you'll hear next, and Jennifer covers County Dublin. Sarah and Susan cover the south of the country, and Roisin is the southeast, and Tony the northeast. And Roisin and Tony are carrying out the technical duties this evening. In terms of our agenda, well, we will now have a presentation from Jenny, and that will take about 20 minutes. And then we're going to have a breakout sessions, which will be facilitated by our own staff. And that's really an opportunity for you to direct how that goes and really just to learn from each other and to talk to each other. And we'll do that for about 25 minutes. We'll have a bit of feedback, then questions and answers, and the meeting will end. As I said already, the presentation is going to be recorded, and that will be shared after the session, and all the information will be shared with you as participants in this event this evening. So that's it. Without further ado, I'm going to pass you on to Jenny, and I hope you enjoy the evening.
Thanks, Tracy. My name is Jennifer Hennessy, and as Tracy mentioned, I look after the Dublin region in Cloncredo. And so I'm going to speak to you for the next 20 minutes, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Cloncredo for any of you who don't know us, and tell you what we've been doing over the last couple of months. Then I want to share with you a little bit about what our customers have been saying to us and what they've been saying their concerns are right now. And then the bulk of the presentation will be sharing the knowledge, supports and resources that we've pulled together and that we hope will help you at this time. And we'll be sending you a copy of this presentation, and hopefully this information in the presentation will provide some useful discussion in the breakout sessions after the presentation. So Cloncredo was established in 1996, and since then we've invested over 120 million in the community and voluntary sector and sports clubs. So these include loans to community centres, social housing organisations, arts centres, GAA clubs, soccer clubs, and many, many other types of not-for-profit organisations. We in Cloncredo believe that we have a responsibility to our customers at this time especially, and we continue to support you as you face these new challenges, and we want to encourage shared learning among the Cloncredo community. So we're all working remotely, and we're available to speak to any customers who need our support at this time. We have been able to provide forbearance or amendments to, to loan repayments at this time where necessary, and we deal with each organisation's request on a case-by-case basis, as we understand each organisation, their needs and capacity are unique to them. We continue to accept new applications for bridging loans, term loans, working capital loans from our current customer base and new Cloncredo customers. So we've been busy over the last couple of months. We've been carrying out work with our partners in the sector, including such as the Wheel and the Federation of Irish Sport. We were part of a group of 14 national organisations who asked the government to establish an immediate short-term resilience fund and a more medium long-term stability package for the not-for-profit sector. That advocacy was led by the Wheel, and you may be aware that a few weeks ago the 40 million COVID-19 fund a support package was announced for community groups and social enterprises. So we were, that lobbying of the government was successful for the sector. So what have you been saying to us about your challenges at the moment? This is our third online customer meeting, supporting community organisations through challenging times. The online events are a new experience for us, and we've learned a lot from them. People have been telling us that they find it good to engage with other groups and to share information. Some groups have found that they're faring quite well in comparison with other groups, and others have got good ideas for how they can improve things for their communities at the moment. People at our previous events have shared a lot about their fears and the uncertainty at the moment, and there are many concerns for their organisations. They've asked us to provide support and advice on managing costs. They've asked for information on grant sources and any other income sources at this time. They've asked for advice on how to get back up and running, and information about what types of loans might be available right now. Unfortunately, we're not able to provide all the answers to all the questions that we've had on the events. However, we do feel that Cloncredo is well placed in the sector to have some insight into your challenges, and we wish to share as much knowledge as we can with you. So to try and share the knowledge that we've built up, we've prepared a resource document that breaks the advice and knowledge into 4 different key sections, which I'll go through now. So the resource pack will be sent out to you by email over the coming days, and it includes the links to some of the resources that I'll be talking about, and it also includes links to the grants and different organisations that are providing webinars at the moment. The resource pack is broken into 4 sections. There's income generation, grants and fundraising. Secondly, managing your cash flow and costs. Thirdly, the importance of communications right now. And finally, adapting your business model and preparing for recovery. So firstly, income generation. There's a number of grant schemes have been announced by the Department of Rural and Community Development over the last few weeks, and they include an allocation of 15 million for the Town and Village Renewal Scheme to support rural towns and villages. A 10 million fund for outdoor recreation infrastructure schemes. This is for the development of new and existing outdoor recreation infrastructure in rural areas. And there's a 5 million CLAR fund for 2020, which has been announced, which is for more small-scale infrastructure projects in rural areas. So the Minister has advised that these have all been tailored this year to respond to the new COVID-19 environment. So, you know, significant sum of money. Also, I mentioned the COVID-19 Stability Fund. Now the deadline for the 35 million has closed, and people will be waiting for responses on their applications there. There will be an open call this month and in September for the 5 million Innovate Together Fund. That Innovate Together Fund is being managed by the Social Innovation Fund. You can see that mentioned there on the slide. So groups who are working in online education or involved in youth mental health intervention and community outreach should be working on applications in advance of the calls for that Innovate Together Fund, and looking at ways to innovate and ways that you could secure grants from the Social Innovation Fund. I'd like to mention here the Wheels Funding Point platform. It has a list of COVID-specific grants and funds. I just looked it up there today. There was an Irish Youth Foundation 500,000 fund for organisations working with young people. The deadline for that fund is the 1st of July. They mention a number of other funds there. Google has donated 1 million to NGOs, the Web Summit donation. So just to keep your finger on the pulse, Cloncredo customers who've drawn down loans since 2017 are entitled to either a free membership or a €150 voucher for the Wheels. So that would go towards that joining funding point. However, a lot of the resources on the Wheel website are free at the moment, just given the times that we're in. There is no resilience fund that I know of as of yet for the sports sector, but I would say that the Federation for Irish Sport are lobbying hard for a fund for the sports sector, and you know, hopefully, you know, there will be news on that. So other sources of income and funds at the moment, many people have asked about social finance at present. As already mentioned to you, Cloncredo continues to provide a full service. We provide bridging loans, we provide term loan approvals for various projects. Leader program grants and sports capital grants are still going ahead. Groups sometimes require letters of support for bridging loans and matching finance for those projects. So you can contact Cloncredo for those letters of support. We're providing working capital loans for groups investing in their premises or looking at new supports right now. So fundraising, many of you have had to cancel local community fundraising events over the last 2 months, and traditional patterns of community fundraising have been greatly disrupted. I have a link there to a document on the Wheel website. It's an event and fundraising document that was prepared, and that advises not to be ashamed of the fundraising side of your organisation. Communicate that fundraising efforts must still go on. Make sure fundraising participants understand the important role of fundraising and how important those events are in your organisation. While people are still less likely to attend events than they would have in the past, it is probably, you know, maybe a hybrid, you know, approach is you know, something that people can look at. So, you know, keeping that virtual fundraising option to your event may continue to be beneficial for some time. The number of Cloncredo customers have reported that they've switched completely to online lottos. This is paid once a month by standing order, and they advise that there's been no drop off in the numbers playing. Some other ideas for fundraisers online include a virtual 5K run. You can run your online quizzes, auctions online. I'm sure you've heard of many of these things. You can add fitness trackers to your virtual event using tracking apps, so that there's, you know, group targets for certain activities. Some forms of fundraising at this time are unlikely to be adversely affected by the pandemic. According to 2 into 3, who are fundraising consultants, they have run a number of webinars over the last couple of months, and they predict that donations from trusts or foundations won't drop, and they say that there'll only be small declines in committed giving and corporate donations. So on that note, you know, don't be overly hesitant in making contact with existing or potential donors. I would say research your donors, your corporate donors' activities at this time. Some retail businesses are doing very well. Try to make connections with tech companies or the biopharma sector. You know, some of these corporates may be looking at corporate social responsibility at this time. Look out for announcements from corporates like Diageo or the ESB Fund, the Bank of Ireland Community Fund. These are just you know, examples of corporates that you could approach. The third piece there on this slide is crowdfunding. Some of you may be familiar with crowdfunding. It's often used by sports clubs and arts groups. But a couple of webinars that I've been on recently about crowdfunding suggest that charities should be using crowdfunding more, and I am seeing that it's becoming more common. So with crowdfunding, the average amounts raised are around €5,000. Now they can be well in excess of that, but that's the average amount. Crowdfunding platforms, there are web-based platforms which allow you to post details of a specific project that you want the public or people in your area to donate to. So it can be quite local. For example, you might want to purchase some equipment or invest in a new technology project, or it could be part of a larger capital project. But the projects must be finite, they must have a beginning and an end, and crowdfunding is not raised for ongoing operational costs. So do research your crowdfunding platforms. There's quite a few out there, and they can charge between 8 and 10% of the overall costs. I think Altruism Ireland is one mentioned there, and their costs are quite low, I think down as low as 2 or 3%. So that's one that you could look at. Just to note on the crowdfunding, like, you do need to dedicate time to the campaign, and you do need to plan it. It's a bit like running a marketing campaign. You need to know your unique selling point, and you need to be ready to drive the campaign, posting updates on social media. They usually last for 4 to 6 weeks, but they can be very effective, and I'm seeing a lot of groups using them. So if you have the time and energy, it can be very worthwhile. The second theme in our sharing the knowledge pack relates to managing your cash flows and costs. It's really important to look at your income and expenditure budget for 2020 and look at revising it. On the screen here, you can see this is actually a very simple budget that one of my customers provided to me when they approached me with a view to reducing their payments for 3 months. So they were able to show their original budget for the year and then their best estimate of a revised budget given the impact of COVID on their income and costs. It's not good to bury your head in the sand at this time. Once you have redrafted your budget, it will help you to make decisions. You might be able to look at, is there anything you can do to improve your income? Is there anything that I've mentioned earlier about the grants or the fundraising that could help to improve your income? Maybe you can look at selling some services online or other such things. Once you've reviewed your income, then review your costs. Where can costs be cut or reduced or delayed? It's really important to keep lines of communication open with your creditors at this time. People tend to be understanding. People, are experiencing their own difficulties. So I think, people will try to help where they can. So speak with your utility providers, your landlords, your lenders to reduce or restructure bills at this time, and be able to show them that you've updated your budget and just what your position is and what you're planning. The Wheel as well, they have a help desk which is providing advice on government wage scheme. It's quite technical, so if you do need some advice on that, you can talk to them. Thirdly, our theme in knowledge sharing is communications. As in the case of keeping communications open with your creditors, it's really important to keep all communications channels open with your members, your local sponsors, and donors. Just start the conversation, ask them how they're getting on. Everyone has a story at the moment. Share your stories of impact. Adapt your communication at this time to explain how you're being impacted by COVID-19 or how demand for your services has been modified at the moment. Let people know what your needs are over the stages ahead. You may all, or you may not, have a chosen social media platform. If you don't have one, use Facebook or Twitter to keep lines of communication open with your members. Encourage those who aren't engaged in social media to do so. Maybe now is a time to tap into the capital, the human capital, especially in your organizations, There may be some technologically savvy people who or marketers who've not been involved at a committee level to date, who may be really able to help you now. So fish them out and get them on the committee. Just for any of you who aren't so savvy with social media, the Carmichael Centre is running online courses for using social media and to promote your work during a crisis. Or they've also provided courses on cybersecurity, which is an important factor at the moment. Are you using Zoom? You obviously are here at this event. So use Zoom or Skype or even WhatsApp to continue to meet with your committee, with your board, have your board meetings at this time. You can run events like this. You can run online quizzes or online, training events at the moment. No. So just moving on there. So adapting your business model. This is the last theme in the resource pack. The last theme is around how to adapt your business model and preparing for a phased recovery. So Ireland is now in phase 2+ of the government's roadmap for reopening society, and people can travel all around their county. I was looking there today, playgrounds can reopen. In sports clubs, up to 15 players can return to non-contact outdoor sports training. By the end of this month, all going well, people will be able to travel freely anywhere in Ireland. Creches, childminders and preschools will be able to operate. So these easing of restrictions contain many caveats relating to social distancing and ensuring safety, and organisations will be expected to comply with the government guidelines on reopening. On this slide here, I've provided 2 key resources which I would highly recommend for guidance on returning to work and commencement of activities. One is the Wheel and the other is the Federation of Irish Sport. So even just today, the Wheel sent around a communication with links to 3 webinars that they're going to be running. I think one's on the 19th of June. And their help desk on their website has checklists, protocols, and practicalities on returning to work. Advice ranges from getting employees to complete a self-assessment form on their capacity to return to work safely, and to preparing a suspected case response plan, I suppose, if people come back to work and if there is a suspected case. For sports clubs, the Federation of Irish Sport has a lot of practical advice on their website, and they provide a guidance document there, which is prepared by an expert group, which outlines practicalities of meeting for training in phase 2. I sometimes think this is a good time to look to the hospitality sector or the retail sector and how they're managing. Hand sanitizers should be visible at the door of your venue, social distancing signage, floor signage, perspex screens may be necessary. Are you able to avail of volunteers at sports clubs or community events? Can volunteers supervise queues or entrance to your building as they do in some of the supermarkets? You might, I would notice that in my supermarket. It's just small things, but you may also decide to change your work practices, or is it relevant to provide hourly time slots for service users? Can service users pre-book their services at this time? These are all just things. There's a photo here of a social distancing dog. One of our colleagues, her brother lives in Brooklyn, and her brother sent her a picture of this park in Brooklyn, and I think his dog is being very compliant in his social distancing there in the park. There's also a picture on the slide of a pod that was designed in Kinsale for they're hoping to have some, you know, outdoor tourism this year in the summer. So adapting your business model and innovating now is a good time for trying new things. There's many examples of community groups innovating online and on Twitter. So look them up and see what other groups are doing. Can you develop a new plan for selling something as the market reopens? Can you increase your support of vulnerable people at this time? Some good examples there on the slide. Enable Ireland, they were forced to close during the outbreak, and they linked up with Microsoft Teams. They're now providing 30 hours of virtual services for people with disabilities. Darndale Belcamp Village Centre is one of the largest community centres in the country, and it's preparing to reopen, albeit at a reduced capacity. During the restrictions, they had more than 1,000 older people that usually use the centre that had to stay at home. So the staff there brought services to their users. They brought simple activity packs with word searches, puzzles, quizzes to the older members of their community to keep them active. And I believe that the members there started calling each other to compare notes about their bi-weekly packs that they were receiving. So Darndale Belcamp, that's a huge complex, and the facilities manager has had a challenge ahead of him in the you know, getting ready to reopen there. The management have conducted an induction process to instill confidence in employees returning to the workplace. What were 20 people capacity rooms in the Golden Years facility will now only allow 7 people. However, the centre will continue to this kind of hybrid approach where they continue to outreach and connect with people at home, just for this coming interim period. I've listed a load of other resources there. I mean, actually quite a few of them I've mentioned over the presentation, and you will be getting copies of these slides. And a lot of these groups, they're providing really useful webinars. Trust Law, they're giving advice about reassessing legal contracts at the moment. And anyway, they're all listed there, and you will get them. So in the interest of time, I just want to summarise the last 20 minutes. I've spoken to you about Cloncredo. We've provided over 120 million to the community and voluntary sector in loans since 1996. We've been busy lobbying with our partners in the sector over this time. I told you about our communications with our customers over this period, and I've also tried to share with you the knowledge and resources that we in Cloncredo have collected over the last few months. So it's a lot to fit into 20 minutes, but hopefully the presentation, you know, will give you some ideas and get some conversations going about the facilitation sections with your next. So thank you all so much for your attention. I'm going to pass you back to Tracy, who will introduce the facilitation session.
Thanks very much, Jenny. And I hope that you found that presentation informative. And as Jenny said, all of that information on that Jenny delivered in the presentation, and also the resource pack that she referenced, will be available.